The world of The Witcher is built upon ideas lifted from the mythology of Poland and other Eastern European cultures, though some of the earliest chronicles of Geralt of Rivia often drew their inspiration from classic folklore. Writer Andrzej Sapkowski took many world-famous fairy tales and put an authentically Witcher spin upon them, weaving new versions of familiar stories. Such is the case with this short story included in The Last Wish, the first collection of Geralt's adventures. Borrowing from the French novelist Gabrielle Suzanne Barbeau de Villeneuve's classic Beauty and the Beast, first published in 1740, this tale sees Geralt come face to face and draw his blade against a man cursed to live as a beast, and his lover, a beautiful woman, though the reality of their circumstance leaves the Witcher to wonder if there is a grain of truth to old stories and fairy tales. And hey, before we begin, I'd like to ask you to please like this video if you enjoy what I'm doing here, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you're notified every time I upload a video. Hey, we all gotta play the game here and please those algorithm old gods. Because honestly, sometimes it really does feel like YouTube is a weird, Lovecraftian monster. Anyway, let's get started. While traveling along a main thoroughway, the Witcher, Geralt of Rivia, notices a group of birds circling over a small area off the path. Though they could be carrion circling a dead elk or other such animal, he decides it is worth the detour to check. However, after a short journey to the ravine where the birds have gathered, he discovers two human corpses. The first is a man, an armor merchant by his clothes and belongings, and the other a woman, bearing a dark blue rose and a natural bite upon her neck. They have both been dead for 2 or 3 days, and Geralt wonders why they were so far off the main road. Following the faint path the man and woman had come from, the Witcher sees a woman in a white dress, but she vanishes into the woods as the Witcher approaches to greet her. Nearby, he sees a wall within the forest, vines and brushes clinging to the stonework, and a sturdy gate with rusty hinges that opens as Geralt touches it. Within is a neglected courtyard with a dolphin statue upon a fountain carved from white stone, an old mansion, paint peeling and plaster chipped, and a rose bush with brilliant blue flowers. As the Witcher smells one of the flowers, the doors of the dilapidated mansion bursts open, and a beast rushes out towards Geralt. Without flinching, he draws his sword before the beast can make its way to him, but the creature stops short, face to face with the Witcher. The beast roars at Geralt, telling him to flee before it rips the Witcher in two, but Geralt does not move and builds a rapport with the monster. It reveals its name as Nivellen, owner of the mansion and courtyard, and he is annoyed that the trespassing Witcher has picked one of his roses. Still, he is in some small way impressed that Geralt has no fear of him despite his grotesque form, and he invites the Witcher into his home, as it has been some time since Nivellen had company, and the Witcher was no ordinary guest. The pair chat and dine, with Nivellen displaying complete magical control over the home and every object within it, conjuring fire at the braziers and food on the table. The beast explains that he was once a bandit, as was his father and grandfather before him. They commanded a small company of highwaymen out of the mansion, robbing passing merchants they spotted on the main road and burning villages they felt had not paid their dues in a timely manner. Nivellen's family built quite a fortune from this, but their sins caught up with them some 12 years before. His father was killed by one of the many enemies the company had made, and his grandfather was crippled by a blow to the head, leaving a young Nivellen in charge. The rest of his men pushed Nivellen to allow them to commit worse and worse crimes, things Nivellen's father would have never allowed had he still drawn breath. Eventually, they robbed a temple of Cormac Terra. Nivellen's men decided it was time that he become a real man, and coerced him into forcing himself upon one of the priestesses of the temple. She cursed Nivellen, saying that he was a monster in human skin, but that he'd live as a monster in monster's skin, before producing a dagger and ending her own life. A few days later, Nivellen awoke as a beast, killing a few of his men and scaring off the rest in his panic. For some time, the beast lived alone in his mansion, wallowing in sorrow over what he had done and what he had become. When curious passerbys investigated the mansion, Nivellen would use his magical dominion over the building to scare them away, until he saw a merchant come around and pick one of his roses. The plant had been sown by Nivellen's grandfather from seedlings brought from the distant land of Nazaire, and the beast flew into a rage when any harm came to it. When the merchant was rushed, he begged for his life, explaining that he just wanted to pick one of the exotic roses for his daughter. Nivellen then wondered if there was some grain of truth in old fairy tales, that perhaps a beautiful young woman could turn him back into a man, and demanded that the merchant decide between his daughter or his life. The merchant began to sob, confessing that his daughter was only a child, and a remorseful Nivellen invited the man inside to eat and calm down. When the merchant left, Nivellen offered him some of the treasure from his years of banditry as recompense for frightening him earlier. A short while later, another merchant arrived with his adult daughter in tow. Nivellen reckoned that the first merchant had told the tale of his misadventure. Still, the beast had grown rather lonely. In exchange for some treasure, the merchant's daughter would stay with Nivellen for a year before leaving safely. He made several arrangements like this throughout the years, treating the young women like true ladies and requiring nothing from them but their company, though many would become comfortable with Nivellen in his home and in his bed after a time. After a while, Nivellen even came to find his monstrous body enjoyable, delighting in his new strength and manipulative power over his mansion and belongings. Throughout the conversation, the Witcher listens attentively, but cannot shake free of the feeling that the pair are not alone. Eventually, Geralt asks if they are, but Nivellen dodges the question. At the end of their dinner, the beast escorts Geralt out of his home, reluctant that he cannot offer him a room for the evening because it is occupied by the latest girl to live with him, Vareena. From what he can pick up from Nivellen's hints at the woman, Geralt tells the beast that she is probably a rusalka, a type of dryad. Nivellen is not surprised by this, as she seemed quite odd, but he insists that they are in love. As the Witcher prepares to leave, Nivellen tells him that he is not stupid, and asks Geralt if something happened to one of the merchants that visited his home. Geralt confirms this, and though he has had no knowledge of any harm to come to any travelers in the area, Nivellen talks of having dark dreams as of late. The beast fears that he will soon truly become the monster he appears to be, and asks Geralt that, if the condition worsens to the point that he becomes a danger, that his duty as a Witcher will be done, both ending Nivellen's suffering and protecting anyone he may hurt. The Witcher agrees, also offering to return if he finds any way to break Nivellen's curse. Geralt then leaves, though he does not go very far. That night, Geralt hears terrible noises that sound as if a woman is screaming and singing, which startles the Witcher's horse. He returns to Nivellen's estate, wielding his silver sword, finding the gate open and Vareena perched upon the dolphin statue in the fountain, singing in a language he does not understand. The Witcher tells her that she is so like a rusalka that she could deceive almost anyone, but horses are not made nervous by dryads. A vampire would scare a mare, though, and conjure dark dreams within a man like Nivellen. But no ordinary vampire could come out in sunlight, as Geralt had seen her in the forest earlier. She must be something more. The Witcher deduces what she is almost too late. She is a Brusha, and her powerful wail hits Geralt before he can defend himself. A giant black bat appears where the woman once perched upon the dolphin, and it rushes the Witcher almost too fast for him to keep up. Shortly into the battle, Nivellen appears from the mansion, distracting the Brusha and saving the Witcher's life. The beast attacks the vampire, impaling her on a pole as she turns her attention away from the Witcher. Now gravely injured, she seems intent on taking her lover's life as well if she is going to lose her own that night. She almost succeeds, but the Witcher is able to sever the Brusha's head from her body, saving Nivellen. The beast, covered in the Brusha's blood and reeling from her declarations of love and accusations of betrayal, curls onto the ground. When the Witcher approaches, the beast has returned to the form of a man, his curse undone by his lover's blood. Though the exact timeline is unclear, a grain of truth is believed to be one of the first adventures of Geralt of Rivia, both chronologically in universe and for readers on the page. On the whole, it is a story that has little impact on the rest of The Witcher's sprawling tale, and has nothing to do with the destiny Geralt is forced to confront later in his life. But it gives us an invaluable look into what he does and how he thinks. A Witcher is not a mindless killer of anything that is different. No, they are in fact quite accepting of creatures others would deem monstrous, as long as they keep to themselves and don't harm anyone. Expectations are also subverted by making the Belle in this retelling of Beauty and the Beast the more dreadful of the pair. Indeed, the world woven here is one where often what is beautiful on its surface is what can do you harm, like a rose and its thorn. The world of The Witcher is fascinating and honestly one of my favorite fantasy franchises out there right now. So if you want more videos like this about The Witcher, let me know down in the comments below and tell me what sort of stuff you'd want me to talk about. And in general, just let me know what you think about this story. I really like this sort of retelling of a classic fairy tale through a very dark and different lens. While you're down there, please don't forget to like and subscribe and to ring that bell icon so you're notified every time I upload one of these videos. It would be nice if I didn't have to beg you to do so, but that's how the game is played here, unfortunately. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.